Hello and welcome back to the Weird and Proud Podcast. It's Sam and
Your voice did something funny there.
I did hello. I try and do it a little bit, but I don't know if that's crazy.
No, I liked it.
I don't know if that's crazy.
James.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you're having a great week. Hope you guys are staying cool. We have been sweating our asses off over here.
Do you mean hope that they have a great week rather than had a great week? What are we asking?
Both.
We would like all of your
previous week, but I hope you
and
also
a great week this week.
Are having a great week. I hope you have all the great weeks. And hopefully, again, you're staying cool in this crazy heat wave. We are not okay, the New Englanders. We have been, it's been like 95 and humid, like 80% humidity. So if you hear a little buzzing, we do have the AC on because if it was not on, I
just
would
awful.
be dying.
No, I'm not approved.
Yeah, it would not be fun for anyone. So we hope you're having a great week. 4th of July is coming up. Exciting things. We just finished. We had an amazing show in Boston.
Oh, the Boston people.
It was one of the best. I mean, I feel like I always say that, but it was just, the crowd was amazing. It was so great to see all of you guys. Boston always shows up.
Boston showed up big time.
Yeah.
That room was full.
Yeah, they said it was the most full they've ever had at that club.
That was a great show.
And it was literally like in the Gillette Stadium area, and obviously not at Gillette, like I keep trying to say, but it was right next to it, and I had my face up like on like the placard. Like, how crazy.
Did you ever post that?
Oh, well, I did on my stories.
You should show. Good.
Yeah. Which all the cool people watch my stories.
That's where the real cool
That's
stuff
where the
happens.
real weird stuff happens. But yeah, it was a great weekend. We got so much done, and we'll be back soon. More shows coming soon. Philadelphia, get ready. Maryland, Baltimore area, New Jersey, get ready. I finally am working with someone who's going to help me book some spots. So hopefully I can get some more rolling. Hopefully this fall. We'll probably take a little bit of July off just from all the traveling, even though we're going to Maine.
I think we should.
July.
I think we should book a show in July still.
You do? You're crazy.
I know it's harder work for you, but I loved it. Can I talk more about the Boston people for a second?
Sure, James.
They were because I think people that come to the show that listen to the podcast
are
the super special weirdlings.
Yeah.
I love it when
That's
somebody
like
tells
VIP.
me they listen to the podcast.
Like if you're, especially like at the meet and greet, and you're like, hey, we love the podcast. Like that's.
And I come around and get the secrets beforehand. I purposely spend a little extra time at your table to the best of my ability.
So make sure you mention that
if you're there like 5 minutes before the show, I may not be able to, but I'm coming to meet you. And the Boston people were off the hook. They were crazy.
The hook. Yeah, it was just a great time. Great times had by all. And again, hopefully there'll be even some West Coast, hopefully in the future, Midwest. I know, it's just, I do have my audience is greater in this area, so it's a little bit easier. And of course, we don't have to travel as much, take a plane, which makes our life easier. But hopefully we're also going to get out west too at some point this fall too. Also, I was just hearing too, like comedy clubs, like a lot of live shows in general are so hard to sell in the summer. Just because people have so many plans going on. People are busy. They're traveling. There's weddings.
The place to do it is the South, where it's already way too hot and nobody's going outside.
No one wants to go outside.
Like in the Midwest and Northeast,
normally we're outside.
Going out. We're doing stuff outside.
Yeah. So more to come soon on that, but we do have a great episode for you guys. This is another one of those stories. I have a full list of all of these weird stories that have come across, in my time being chronically online and also just listening to another, also a bunch of other weird podcasts, and of course all the documentaries and stuff that I watch. But we have a story that has been on my list that people have also requested. And it's gotten a resurgence because a documentary recently just came out about it. So I figured it would be the perfect time to talk about the Sherri Papini case. If you haven't heard of the story, it's another wild, wild story. We're We're going to talk a little bit about it. And of course about the Netflix doc. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't Netflix. It was Hulu. That just came out. It's called The Perfect Wife on Hulu. So obviously we're going to give a little bit of spoilers, but like, if you know about this case, you know, like, it's been in the news. It happened in 2016, but there was the trial happened in 2022, I believe. So whether you've heard about it or not, it's extremely interesting, and you'll definitely want to go watch the documentary too as well. We won't give too much away about the documentary. And then James is going to do a little follow up to that, of course, with James Science Corner.
Well, good. I haven't seen the documentary yet, so I'm glad.
I know, and you haven't even heard of the case, which is kind of nice. Like, I honestly do like when you haven't heard of it or watched it. Like, if I do,
I actually enjoy that too.
Because then it's like, it's more, like, you're going to give real life questions or reactions to it.
I always try to give real life questions.
Well, of course, but like, if you haven't seen it, like, it'll be, I feel like it's more effective.
I agree.
So, and then of course we have amazing weird secrets. We have some today, James, that blew my mind. But they always blow my mind, and you guys are wackadoodles, and I love you for it. So without further ado, James, so let's chat the Sherri Papini case. Let's chat the new documentary. If you haven't seen it, again, it's on Hulu. It's called The Perfect Wife, the story of Sherri Papini. So, and again, this is one of those stories that has baffled me forever and will always baffle me forever. Like, she will live in infamy. So, to set the stage, it's 2014 in Redding, California. Sherri Papini is, pretty much just like your all-American mom, super mom woman. She was a stay-at-home mom. She had 2 young kids. She was married. Sorry, this happened in November 2nd of 2016. Okay. So again, perfect marriage. She's in a happy marriage. She has 2 kids. She's a stay-at-home mom. Everyone has nothing but great things to say about her. Okay. Her and her husband were chatting. This was like a normal day. I think it was like a Thursday. And they were chatting. They were texting all day. She was asking her coming home for lunch. He's like, no, I have to stay at work. And then he's texting her later in the afternoon about dinner, about, when he's coming home, and she's not responding. And he's like, that's really weird. He comes home and she's not there and the kids aren't there. And he's like, well, this is really strange. So he's calling the daycare and he's like, hey, did my wife come by? And the daycare's like, no, your kids are still here. And he's like, that's bizarre. Like, she would never not come get the kids. She would never do that. So he's starting to freak out a little bit. He's driving home. He has the kids, obviously. And now he's starting to search around. He's starting to look. He cannot find her anywhere. He's calling, obviously, all her friends. No one's seen her. Then, he, of course, calls the police and is like, something's going on with my wife. I can't find her. She normally always goes get the kids. Like, I haven't talked to her since this morning. And the police come by. They start just doing a little preliminary search. And they find her phone, her headphones, and like a bit of her hair about a mile from where their house is on like her running route. So of course they're like, oh my God, someone must have taken her. Like, she must have gone for a run and someone, something happened to her. Either someone took her or like, she was hurt. They're calling the local hospitals. She's nowhere to be found. She's like almost gone without a trace. So now the police, of course, are more involved. They're searching all night. They get these, like the entire town is involved. Like over 300 people go to search for her the next day, all through the woods, through the entire town. She is gone, completely disappeared. And they're like, what the hell? This is so weird. So it's starting to get some news traction. People are talking about this. This woman's gone missing. Be on the lookout for her. No one's found her. There's no trace of her. They could find nothing on her phone that was weird. It was like one of those where she was just disappeared, literally, like with no reason. They could not find anything. It was totally bizarre. So, at first, a lot of people are looking at the husband. Of course, then it starts to go to online sleuths. Obviously, the husband had to have been involved, but they just couldn't find anything. Like, it's not like there was a life insurance policy that was taken out. It was not like he was having an affair or like anything like that. Like the husband did not seem sketchy. And basically, they did, after like a week, rule him out. But for like a week, he was getting the brunt of all of this news, and all these online sleuths that are just being like, it's got to be him, breaking down everything he was saying. And they are just like at a loss. And it's good. This goes on for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. They are searching, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with the police. The FBI is starting to get involved, and they cannot find her. They just don't know what happened to her. Then all of a sudden, it's November 24th. So it's like a day before Thanksgiving. Keith, the husband, gets a call that his wife has been found. Sherri's been found, and she's at the hospital. So apparently, she's at a hospital. She was found like 150 miles from where they live. She was found on the side of the road. Okay. So, of course, it's like, oh my God, someone, must have taken her. She must have gotten abducted. And at first, she was like so traumatized that like she didn't really want to talk to anyone. She was like saying about like she thinks the police are in on this. And, she's just so traumatized. She just doesn't want to tell her story. She just wants to be done with this. And so finally her husband, Keith, is like, we got to find these, what happened to you? Like, we got to make sure that people are punished for what happened to you. Because when she came into the hospital, she is covered in bruises. She looks like she has been tortured and beaten for these 3 weeks straight. She has a broken nose. She has a rash all over her. She's lost a ton of weight. She has like someone branded her on her back, a Bible verse. She was just like awful and obviously just shaking, so upset, like couldn't barely talk. And it really took a couple days for them to try and get some information out of her. And she basically said that she was abducted. She was going for a run, and, it was like mid-morning and like, again, like in a nicer neighborhood in California. And all of a sudden, these 2 Hispanic women come up in a dark SUV. They have a gun pointed at her, and they're like, get in the car now or we'll shoot you. So she gets in the car with them, and she says they drive for, she doesn't know, but it was, a couple hours. And they bring her to this house, and they have her basically chained and locked up in this room where she's there for 3 weeks straight, being beaten, tortured every day. They were threatening that these 2 Hispanic women who abducted her were threatening that they were going to sell her into slavery.
Okay.
And, they were just waiting for the buyer, and that the buyer was like friends with a cop. So like they were working with dirty cops, and there was no way that she was going to get out of this. So somehow, she said, like after 3 weeks, these 2 Hispanic women, there was a younger one and an older one. And the older one apparently was like more bossy and like the mean one. And she did a lot of the abuse. And the younger one, apparently, like she said, one night they got into a fight, the 2 Hispanic women. And there was something about how they were going to get found out and whatever. It ended up, Sherri says, that the younger one ends up shooting the older one. And then the younger one starts feeling bad and is like, I'm going to drop you off.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the younger one just drops her off
Happens
on the side of the road.
to drop her off.
Yeah.
Doesn't kill her.
Yeah, exactly. So they, the police are like, oh my God, we got to be on the lookout for these 2 Hispanic women. They're putting together, what's it called when they draw up, like she gives them a description and they draw, I forget what it's called, like a sketch
artist?
Sketch artist, yeah. So a sketch artist like draws, these 2 very stereotypical Hispanic women. And this was also in a time too where there was just a lot of racism going on in the country and in this part of California because of border control.
Oh yeah.
So it caused a lot of uproar in the community. Like all of these Hispanic, people were getting targeted and abused because everyone was freaking out. They're like, oh my God, this is a nice neighborhood. And she just got taken off the side of the road. Like, we got to be on the lookout.
By Hispanic women.
So, so it's good. She's telling her story. And if you watch in the documentary, and this is why I think regardless you should watch this documentary, because it shows all of her interviews. And it shows all the interviews, like the husband too is like, he's a huge part of this documentary. He's telling it from his point of view too, where he's like, of course, like, they, it was raising some flags in the beginning where you're like, huh, what? You're like, you wouldn't think, like, of course, why would she lie about something? Why would she, over exaggerate some things? You're like,
she's this perfect wife.
Right. And she obviously was very traumatized. Like, you can see too in pictures and in the videos of her interviews, like, she was super skinny. She had bruises all over her. Her nose was broken. Her, this branding on her back. Like, she looked horrible. So you're like, oh my God, like, yeah, something bad had to have happened to her.
Of course.
So, so this goes on for like years, and they cannot find these two women.
Years. Oh.
Years. It's just dead end after dead end. And she's still living with her husband. Everything's going great. Her kids are getting older, but obviously even her kids too have a lot of trauma from like their mom just going missing for 3 weeks. Like anytime like anything little happens to her, the kids freak out. So come to find out, 2022. So again, like over 6 years later, the FBI calls and is like, Keith and Sherri, you guys need to come down here. We have some information on your case. And so Keith is like, great. They found the people who abducted you, like finally getting justice.
What did Sherri think about this?
And Sherri is like, well, I don't want to get dragged back into this. I don't want the trauma to come back. Like, I just want to be done with this. I just want to move on. And Keith's like, but don't we want to like get justice for you? Make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else. And she's already starting to act kind of sketchy. So they go to the FBI.
How sketchy? Like what?
Well, she's just like, she starts to be like, if they found this, because now, of course, there's only one Hispanic woman left because she killed the older one. So she's like, I feel bad for her. I don't want to get her in trouble anymore. She let me go. She let me be free. Like, I feel bad for her. Like, I don't want to press charges against her anymore. And Keith is like, her husband's like, what? Like, they still abducted you, like, this could happen again to someone else. So they go to the FBI. The FBI has Keith and Sherri in the room, and they're like, so, as of course time has gone on, DNA testing has gotten a lot better, and databases also expand as more and more people get tested for the ancestry, DNA and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, and we finally got a hit on the DNA, that on your clothes that you were wearing. And they were like, it came back to your ex-boyfriend, James Reyes. And she's like, what? That's crazy. Like, he's in on this? James has something to do with this? And, you can see the husband being like, what? And the police are, the FBI is like, all right, Sherri, we've talking to James. We've done, we've spent like the last 6 years like building this case basically. Or basically, I think they got the DNA hit like almost 2 years before this.
And they'd
been slowly trying to build up this case, talking to James, talking to the family, pulling up, history records. And they also were trying to find, apparently there were burner phones that were involved too. They were getting burner phones recovered. And so they're like, the gig's up, Sherri. Like, we know everything. Basically, the DNA that she had in her clothes ended up being a match, to someone in James's family, who then led them to James. James was Sherri's ex-boyfriend before she married Keith. And apparently, she just was... she had been talking to him on and off, and apparently she'd also had some other ex-boyfriends that she would chat with, when she got lonely. And a couple weeks ago, this was, whenever, in a couple years ago now at this point, when the police are talking to James, but they're like, what happened? Because right now we think you're involved. Like, right now we're either going to press charges against you for, being with her or having part in the abduction, or you can tell us the truth. And they walk into his house, and Sherri had made all of these sketches too about what the inside of the house looked like, what the room looked like, what the closet looked like, how she was chained up. And as soon as they go in James' house, they're like, this is Sherri's sketch. everything about the house was exactly what she had sketched. And so they're like, James, like, tell us the truth or else you're going to get in trouble, you know? So James is like, okay. So in November 2016, a couple weeks, but me and Sherri had been chatting on and off, months at a time. Then we go silent, and she had reached out in the beginning of November and said, I really need you to help me. I need you to hide me away. I want to like escape this life. And she was telling James that Keith was abusing her. To like be, to get like some empathy from, or whatever, sympathy, empathy from James. She's like, I'm in this abusive relationship. I can't get out. He's hurting me. He's going to hurt our kids. I really need your help to escape this man. So, and this James guy, like, he's, the police describe him as a burnout and describe him as like, basically just a guy who would, do anything for Sherri. He was obsessed with her. And he had thought, he was just helping a friend. And then once she could get out of this situation, they would be together forever. But come to find out, he basically came and picked her up. She said, I need to escape. I need you to like, basically come and take me away. And we need to do this really quietly. I can't have you going to the police or like going to James or anything, or going to Keith. I just need to escape and like get my feet under me, and then I'll divorce him and go to the police and whatever. So she obviously like wasn't thinking very far ahead, because it's just like, what? So he comes and picks her up in Redding and then drives 7 hours. I think he's like 7 hours south of where they live in, I think it's Santa Clara, California, San Clemente, something like that. And she stays at this house, and she like asks him to like beat her, and is literally she has him hit her in the face with a hockey stick. She asked him to hit pucks off her. She was like, and I don't know why he would do that, but he was just like, she just said she needed me to do this, and she needed it to look for the police. But it was like, he was just doing whatever she told him to do. He got a branding kit, and she made him brand her back. She would mix all of these like cleaning solutions and then rub them all over her body to get the rash.
What was the Bible verse? You said it was a Bible verse.
It was like Exodus something. I don't know if they're ever like tied it to something, but I think she just like saw it in a movie.
Just picked a random one. Like, I was just wondering.
Yeah. So it's just crazy to watch like the interview actually happen, because you're watching this woman, just be like, oh, fuck, like, because she had gotten away with it for so many years and was living this lie of like, she has so much trauma, and she would have trouble sleeping and was going to therapy like 3 times a week and would just go into detail about these stories. Come to find out, she's like pulling all of this stuff from like fictional books and movies. Like Gone Girl was huge at this time too. Did you ever watch that movie with me?
No.
But same idea, where like this woman actually was and I read the book too. It started with books, but that this woman was abused by her husband, so she pretends to fake her death to leave. So she's just like, he also says she loves true crime, and she, was a huge, obsessed with Dateline and all this kind of stuff. So she basically just like pulled all of these anecdotes from all these different shows and podcasts and whatever she watched, and tried to pull off like her own abduction and murder. So of course they have so much evidence with the DNA from James coming out and telling the story, that she does end up going to jail for, I think it was like, sadly enough, I think she's going to get out in 2026 or something. So she only goes to jail for like 4 or 5 years.
What did she go to jail for?
For like lying and fraud. And she also like mailed a couple things. Like she was sending things to keep people off the trail. And so it was like 6 years for, I can pull up exactly what it was. And like she owes now to about like $500,000 to the government, because of all the money
that they spent trying to find her
on this woman. Yeah, let me just see what it ends up saying. She did end up pleading guilty. She admitted to orchestrating a hoax, making false statements, mail fraud, And she was sentenced to 18 months in prison. That's it. 18 months in prison in order to pay over $300,000 to cover the multi-state police investigation.
I can see where the prison time isn't super long because that does cost more money.
Right, totally.
But you need that. The prison time is if you're that out of reality, you need a significant punishment. And 18 months in prison to a person that isn't like a hardened criminal, that's going to seem like forever.
Yeah. And owing that much money. Like she was already had no money really. And that was, so, and she did end up too, she got a lesser shaming because she did plead guilty.
Yeah.
She did eventually apologize and said, she also blamed a lot on like trauma from her past and growing up, and she never got enough attention. And
I was just going to say, besides this short-term, do I get a question?
Yes.
So with this short-term planning, like you said it's she did it very short term. She wasn't thinking ahead. What was her real motivation? Did that ever come out? Did she really want to leave her life, or did she just need an adventure?
She wanted to leave her life, and I think she didn't think that so many people would care and like look into this. Like to some degree, and it is, and this is why I was asking you for James Science Corner to look more into some human behavior stuff, because it is, like a person who's like really thinking things through. Like again, like so then what's going to happen after you get taken away? Like, of course, someone just being taken in the middle, in the middle of the day in a nice neighborhood, like people aren't going to forget that. And what are you going to do? She has no money because like she was a stay-at-home mom. Like she couldn't show that she was using her credit cards or like taking money out. And I think too, she was like getting bored. Like at some point she's like, 3 weeks in, she's like stuck in this house. She has no life now. And a lot of people thought too, because she was getting to the point in her marriage where, like it was becoming mundane, and, she was just getting tired of like being the stay-at-home mom and having, like no importance outside of the home, and feeling like she was trapped. And and she was talking to some ex-boyfriends. So she's like, I just want to, have this part of me back again. How can I do that? What if I just run away and like go and stay with this guy? And like, again, maybe she just thought enough time would pass that people would stop caring, and then she could change her identity. But it's like, like a normal person would be like, where did you think this would go? So it's just a crazy story. It again, I think a lot of people might have heard about it back in 2022 when the story originally broke, because it was just, I feel like everyone was talking about it at that point. But now this new documentary has come out, and it really is, it's just fascinating to watch the interviews and see her lying so blatantly. And like it's so easy for her. Like, and in the beginning too, it's one of those where you're like, oh my God, what's happened to her? You feel so bad for her. Oh my God, she was abducted and beaten, and this poor mom, it's like, oh, that's horrible. And then it's like, you little bitch, and the judge, even when they sentence her, they're like, no one likes to be conned and no one likes to be lied to. And you not only wasted so many resources and so much money, but also like when people do stuff like this, then it does make it harder when other people really do go through this type of thing, that people aren't like questioning your motives. And that was what was happened too. There was this other Netflix documentary that came out, I think it was like a couple months ago now, about a woman who gets abducted, and they're abusing her for like, I think it's like a week straight, and then they let her go. And no one believed her. All the police were like, remember we watched that?
Didn't she have the boyfriend too?
Yeah, and the boyfriend like had to get involved, and they finally like proved
they thought it was him. Same thing. It was
the boyfriend, and she was like, no, this really happened. And this was not too long after this whole Sherri Papini thing. So people are like, sure, you escaped the abductor.
I remember, and I was wondering, I'm like, there was another one we watched that mentioned Gone Girl, and in that same one, and they mentioned Gone Girl in that because it was popular around that time,
right? So
I remember that. Great, that was a great one.
Yeah, another fascinating.
You better give a good disclaimer. That was a really well told story. Now
you.
I'm all caught up. That was fantastic, but you better make sure that the weirdlings know how much you're relaying. I don't think they'll mind.
What about it?
Beforehand, we better put a better disclaimer out there.
Well, of course. And it is, again, it's like with a case like this, it's hard to be like, to talk about it without giving a spoiler.
It was really well done.
But even if you haven't watched this or haven't like looked into this case, obviously I gave a 15-minute summary, but the documentary itself is a series. It's 3 parts. And again, I would go to watch it just because the interviews itself are fantastic. They have all of the documentation.
True. I would love to see the interviews of this woman.
It's really fascinating to see her just like, and also too, once they're being brought in and just watching her squirm, in 2022, once the FBI are about to drop on her, that they know everything. Like, it's just fascinating to watch because she was caught red-handed, and the poor husband. Oh my God, this poor man, what he was dragged through. First he's blamed on the murder, then he finds out, his wife is abducted, and she too had blamed him multiple times. She's like, I can't believe you didn't come find me. I can't believe you didn't find me. Like when they got into fights. Yeah. And she had told people, she's telling people that he beat her and abused her. So all these rumors are spreading that he was abusive, and that's why she had to leave.
None of that is true.
And then come to find out, she made all that up, and she just left because she was bored, whatever it was. And she left and was talking to all these other men. Then they're uncovering all this stuff. They're like, yeah, she's been talking to all these ex-boyfriends. I mean, the poor guy.
Yeah.
And of course, the poor freaking kids.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at this point,
I don't know what's worse. Being a guy, it's like, I don't like the kids is worse, obviously.
Yeah.
Because they are completely innocent in all of this. And for her to not even consider that.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like, who could even just up and, again, it's not like,
Well, that's where the phrase, that's the definition of a sociopath.
Right.
They don't really care or understand what's going on with other people.
Yeah. So I thought this would lead into a great discussion. Also, let me know if you guys have heard about this case. I am curious how many of you guys know about this case, how many of you have watched the documentary, and what your thoughts are. Comment below, send us a message. But I just think it's just one of those stories that you are like, how could you lie that much? And it also reminded me too a lot of the story that we had covered, it's probably like over 6 months ago. But this woman that faked having cancer, that for years, obviously they're different levels and they're not exactly the same, but it is also one of those things where you're just lying repeatedly. Your entire life is basically a lie to everyone around you. You are lying straight to them. And it's like, how do you sleep at night? I would never be able to sleep ever again. Like say one thing I feel like is wrong, or like I think someone's mad at me, and I am beside myself and I can't sleep for days. So it's like, for someone to just lie, again, like have your whole life be a lie, and you're like just okay with it. I just don't understand that. So that's why I said, James, why do people lie? James, why do people lie?
And we can't talk about why people lie because that's way too broad of a subject for this. So I did ask you, I said, what specifically about people lying do you want me to talk about? And your answer was,
well, it was like people who like live a double life.
That's a better version of
lie. Like I feel like that was a good, like that's kind of described some of these scenarios where someone, again, like most of your life you are lying directly to people and to yourself to some degree.
Well, then once it starts and once you do have that other side of it, you're lying. Yeah, you're lying the whole time, right? Yeah. One of the biggest reasons that people start to live a double life, I mean, it all comes back to like deep psychological issues, right?
Yeah.
A person is usually shame. It usually comes from some sort of shame, or you used the phrase. It was interesting that you said she said, I don't get enough attention, or old trauma, right?
Yep.
What it comes down to is we all have 2 parts that are going, 2 or 3 or 10 parts going on at all times. Think about way back to when you were an adolescent, when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
And I saw a specific example. I did look this up. I'm like, I want a story that a psychologist would tell. So I didn't go to New York Post, but I did go to MIT, which
okay. I guess Never heard of it.
They're
but
usually
it sounds smart.
now they're more of the technical side, but apparently they did some human behavior stuff. But what I did find was this was a good story, a good example of what we do as adolescents, where it came from more of a parental and a child situation. And what it was is, say that a girl goes through a growth spurt, and at school she trips because she's taller and she's a little uncoordinated. And then people make fun of her for calling her too tall. She gets home, and then she has this trauma of, and the parents ask, "How was your day?"
Yep.
And all of a sudden her answer becomes very short. "It was fine." And she goes in her room.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, now we could say this person is lying. This person is leading a double life. It was fine when it wasn't, right? But she's not going to tell her parents.
Right.
Now you brought up something else that is related to this story, which is why I was now excited to say this one. You brought up that she had said to the cops, she's like, "Well, I don't want that one Latin woman to get in trouble."
Yeah.
That is the same reason why this, in my fictional situation, which happens in middle schools, that this girl lies to her parents. Is she doesn't want her friends to get in trouble, or she doesn't want to feel like she's tattling on people. She doesn't want to feel like she's saying that, right? So this mixed emotions within us allow us, our body compartmentalizes. We can talk about there's so many other ways this happens. Versions of PTSD, right? Where you might actually lie to somebody not to hurt their feelings. Right. There's a lot of reasons why people start to live double lives. And now this adolescent is living a double life because when this person goes back to school, now they have to face that school self and the parental self. She doesn't want her parents to worry about her. She wants to have perfect grades. Right. And what really needs to come is an integration of the two selves. Meaning, now the ways to do that would be, does it start with the parent? And I'm not into parenting. We're not talking about bad and good parenting here because it's such a delicate balance. But it does come down to communication on two levels, both communicating with other people and communicating with those two parts that are going on with yourself. We all have those crazy little thoughts that go through our head of, just like this person did. She had a thought of, I want a different life. There was really no reason to do it. There was really no good motivation. But she started living this second life, and it probably started with one text to another boyfriend, and she got a little dopamine rush. Then it started with more and more and more and more, and she needed to figure out how far she could take it. And then eventually it got to the point where, like you said, you nailed it. She was probably in the house and so bored that she just couldn't deal with it anymore. So what did she do? She did what was in The Usual Suspects. Do you know the movie The Usual Suspects?
I don't know.
It's going to be my weird watch for everyone. It's a 90s movie, one of the best movies of all time. Benicio del Toro. Yes, Kevin Spacey's in it. Please don't be mad at Kevin Spacey in 1990. He's not the same Kevin Spacey he's now.
Oh my God.
But same thing. He, in that movie, they take bits and pieces from all these different areas to create a story like she did, right? She used her other personality, used the trauma and the idea of a racial tension with Hispanic culture, right? She used, I was beaten, I was this, but really she was the one doing it to herself because she needed to figure out that was her way of integrating the two. Rather than telling the truth, she needed to get the two together. So why we do that is some form of escapism, some form of wanting to entertain ourselves, right? There's a lot of different reasons.
Well, I was thinking too, as soon as you started saying that, we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of human needs.
I love Maslow's hierarchy.
And how we always talk about, there has to be a blend of like humans want certainty, but also they want uncertainty.
Oh, that's Tony Robbins.
Oh, was that?
Maslow's hierarchy is the triangle, a little different. Sorry, not to throw you under
Tony
the bus.
Robbins.
So, yes,
take on it.
Tony Robbins.
I just remember that so much from Tony Robbins.
And it's Tony Robbins and Chloe, who's the doctor that's with him. Chloe, she's fantastic. Anyway, it's human need psychology.
Human needs, like how people, like, of course, like you want certainty, you want to be safe, you want to live in a good house, you have a family, a husband. But then at some point, the human brain is like, I'm bored.
And how do you get your uncertainty?
Is
it the husband? Other examples, let's use a common guy one, right? Men are statistically, I guess, more likely to cheat. Is the guy does he go on a quote unquote work trip, but he's not on a work trip?
Right.
What
or
are
like
these
going
little
on a
escapes?
website, like again,
and how far do you take it and what level do you go?
Right. And it's, how far are you willing to go for it? But
people like the green, I think it was his name. I thought of a serial killer. Now let's talk about the extreme version of a double life, like the Green River Killer.
Yeah.
Right. He, for his family, thought his daughters and his wife thought he was totally normal. And his daughters were like in high school. He got away with it that long and he killed like 40 women or something crazy like that.
So crazy. That's another where it's like,
Again, that's a very extreme version, but we all have the ability that exists within us.
Yeah. But it is, I think also to some degree, it also gets into like sociopath, more of like mental disorders.
Well,
when it goes too far.
So and again, some of it starts with that. Yeah. This one didn't sound like it started with that.
It but she does have a history of lying. Like she had a history of trying to victimize herself a lot.
Oh, she's victim role. Yeah.
Where it was like she was always a victim. Boyfriends were always abusing her. And apparently, too, it had come out. Keith, her husband, was like, she had told me that James used to beat her and was super abusive to her. And James was like, what? I never touched her. Like, So she was just also had this history of consistently lying to become a victim and like an attention seeker too. Like, like it's attention.
It's funny you brought up Tony Robbins first, because I put down a Tony Robbins quote.
Tony
Robbins quote. Which I've told you many times, but I did take it just so I get it word for word. It's one of my favorites. And you'll love it. You've heard me say this one a million times. The strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves.
Interesting.
The strongest force in the human personality is to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. Attaching I am to anything consistently with emotional intensity creates a belief.
Yeah.
That can go both ways, really good and really bad. And when you say, I am bored, I need to get out of this, here are my options, right? Yeah. What if it's just, I am bored, maybe I should talk to the person I'm with and let's come up with something together.
Right.
Or I can fake a kidnapping.
Or
I'll text old boyfriends, right?
Yeah.
Maybe could combine those selves together, because again, the fact that you're bored, you don't want to tell the other person, right?
Right.
In her case, rather than face the shame or the pain or making someone feel bad, here's where we go when we don't have open lines of communication, right?
Right.
And there's another quote that I love too.
Say it, James.
And it comes from Confucius.
Preach, James. Preach.
Comes from Confucius. I loved this.
Confucius.
I told you James's science corner was hot fire today.
I know how to ball. Aristotle.
What was the first thing I said when I walked in the room?
You said, this is about to be fire hot. James corner is going to be fire hot. Anything like psychology you love.
I do love this stuff.
Anything science, but I know we love having discussions like this.
This Confucian one, you've heard me say the Confucius one too. We have two
People's
lives.
As people?
No, that's the Muppets. Easily as wise.
That's another
as
one
all
of your
of
favorite
this.
quotes.
The people's is people's.
People's is people's. Okay, keep going.
We have two lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one.
Wow.
And I wrote these. I thought of these as soon as you said it. These were the two that I'm like, oh yeah, I got to talk about these. But it's funny how it ties into this story, because she created two lives for herself.
Yep.
And it took the FBI to break her down to the point where she realized, oh my God, I really only have this one life. Our behaviors define us.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of thoughts in your head. You should probably talk to somebody about it, and don't necessarily be chicken shit and go talk to strangers. Talk to the person that it's involved. Talk to a therapist is also good. But if you really want to do it, talk to the person that's involved in that and just have a discussion. They might appreciate it. But what we do in the world, back to the sociopath that you brought up, right? When you don't care about what the outcome might be for other people, you're thinking in your very small own little world, right? Where if you use your thoughts and say, I want to have this discussion, I need to talk to you, right? Again, with her and her husband. If she could have said something like that, or maybe one of her ex-boyfriends, where would she be now if she tried to integrate everything rather than compartmentalize and keep it separate?
Of course.
But it's just easier to do that.
But it's like, it is funny, like that. Yeah. The easier route for her was like, I could have a discussion with my husband, or I could.
It seems to be the easier route for lots of people.
Hoax.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just wild. It's really crazy. Human behavior is, pretty interesting to.
This one is, with a lot of stuff, this one came down to communication. But it's not easy.
Well, and communication, but at the end of the day too, it was just like, she also, of course, has to have, I mean, to be able to do that, you have to have some sort of mental.
I have the chicken and cross, or like, I have the old, what came first, the chicken or the egg, with some of that.
Yeah.
Some of those issues get developed over time.
Yeah.
Yes, she probably should have seek help, but she didn't go off. It wasn't like to the point of, let's just go back to the serial killer, right? That's something so deep rooted that you don't even know
to
it.
Have someone like break your nose, hit pucks at you, to go to that level.
Absolutely. But I don't mean the part, like yes, you're right, the actual action in that moment, but the psychological issues from before. Like, I think that hers more developed into, she didn't have another way out. Like, that was the only thing she could think of at the time.
Yeah.
Like you said, she wasn't planning, right?
Right.
It wasn't premeditated with like a true psychological issue.
She was a little, like, she'd been planning, on trying to get this escape with James.
Yep.
And, again, there was all this, showing that she, again, had lied multiple times about exes and would exaggerate things. And, again, they're interviewing a lot of her family members too. And they're like, like, she, her parents growing up had a lot of drug and alcohol abuse issues. So she didn't get a lot of attention and had a lot of insecurities. So I don't know. It's just a really interesting case. I think it was a mix of a lot of things.
I agree that there's a lot of psychological, but back to the parents. Again, sometimes those issues are there genetically, chemically.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get formed over time, and there is a chance along her life that something could have intervened. I'm just being a proponent of open communication now with people.
Right. Of course.
What if a friend would have told her?
Or even like, a day in, even if it's like a day into this thing, she gets over there to James and she's like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Calls up the husband, is like, I'm so sorry. Like, I had a freak moment. I ran away.
But she just couldn't let it go.
No, for years.
But there's also, but because of what she allowed, again, I'm going to say this with sensitivity to her and whatever happened in her past.
Yeah.
This one doesn't seem to be this one developed over time, and she just kept testing the water and testing the water. I can get away with this. I can tell this person this. I can lie to this person and say I'm beat, get attention that way.
Yeah.
Versus just being open with communication. Her just telling someone the truth. And at what point could somebody have told her the truth?
But I think it's,
and I don't know. I didn't
want to have, like, that was the thing, is
she also didn't want this other life found out.
Right. You know? Anyways, crazy story, crazy stuff. And it, and also I had made a note too that it was really interesting. I remember taking a class, and this was one of those throwaway classes that I just did for credits, but it was on criminology in college. And I remember, like, there was a police officer who came in and talked a lot about, like, the psychology about why people commit crimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times too, like, a lot of it is like they justify it in their heads. Like, a lot of times, like, I can steal this laptop because I'm poor, I got fired from my job, or someone took something from me, so I deserve this. This is why I can do it. So it is interesting too that I think, even a lot of times that can come into play too, where it's like, I didn't get enough attention. I'm, being stuck home all the time. I deserve to be able to go out.
That's a narcissistic attitude. You're not worried. You're not worried about your relationship to other things in the world.
Yeah. Anyways, we can talk for days about human behavior. We love it. What are your guys' thoughts? Any comments, thoughts more about Sherri Papini? Comment below. Or if there are any other, I was trying to like think of a secret that could come off of that you could think about. Do you know any narcissists? Anybody have any crazy stories about someone who lies or like a double life scenario? Let us know. Call in. Right?
They should.
They should. Because this brings us to secret. That's right. It's time for secrets, where you guys call in with your weird secrets, and we chat, exploit them, chat about them. Also, make other people feel good. You know, like you will not believe too. It is so funny. I think it is helpful when we throw out themes or ideas because I got so many flight travel,
really?
airplane stories.
Yay.
So many people shitting, throwing up on a plane. I got some more into about sleepwalking. So many people like
sleepwalking's a lot more common than I even thought.
Yeah, and I think too with a lot of just different medications and stuff that people can be on. Yeah, it happens a lot more, but also we have what else? Oh, I was just gonna say there was a couple other too. I got a couple secrets that had sent in that I don't know if you were in a car or broken up, but someone was talking about how they found some dead bodies and then the sound cut out.
No.
Yeah.
Did someone kill them because they were talking about the dead bodies?
Right?
Are you FBI.
Okay? So if you called in about dead bodies, make sure to call again because you broke up half the way through.
And we need that one.
Yeah. And there have been some two people, talking either with AirPods in or earbuds. So I know there's no way for you to like go and re-listen to it, but if it's been like over, I would say like a month and you haven't heard yours,
call it in.
Yeah, call back in and just make sure that you're like in a quiet, somewhat quiet area. A lot of dogs barking too, which of course we can never judge.
We're totally fine with that.
But yeah, somewhere quiet and just make sure that you are like a lot of times with AirPods or earphones and headphones, it can get messed up. So try and do it just like on speakerphone of you talking into it, just so it's nice and clear. Because I know some people have mentioned like sometimes some of the sound with the secrets is different than us talking. So I'm trying to work on that. I'm trying to make this sound better for you guys. I apologize if that has disrupted your listening experience. But with that being said, if you want to call in and leave us a weird secret, you can call in too.
SpeakPipe.
That's speakpipe.com/weird and proud pod. Always anonymous. You can leave up to a minute and 30 seconds. And it'll be in the description too of this podcast, but it's so easy. And you can send it as many as you want. You can record, then delete if you messed up or whatever. So send it in. And yeah, if you know any like narcissists, anyone who's like lied, anyone who's had like some crazy, like what is like a pathological liar? Yeah, I just answered my question. If you know anyone like that or know anyone who's like had a double life, like I don't know why those always, there was like I think it was an MTV show that was like True Life, I Live a Double Life. And it's just fascinating because could never be me. I just don't know how I could live with like that looming over your head, knowing that you're just like lying to someone every day or lying to a lot of people every day. So call us in, let us know. We have so many good ones this week. Little bit of everything, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let's first listen to this one's a good airplane story. James, are you ready?
Prepared.
Here we go.
All right, I'll try to make this fast. Airplane stories. So we were leaving Dominican. I had 3 kids with me. My children. I had a baby at the time. She was still nursing. So we get to the airport. It's like 2 a.m. We decide to eat Wendy's in Dominican. Who chooses that? So we go get in line. They're calling our flight. I'm starting to feel the little rumble in the tummy. So I'm like, I sit down on the floor. There's like drug dogs coming through. I'm just sitting there thinking, this isn't good. We're waiting forever. We get on a bus to get to our plane. My tummy's a grumbling. We finally get on the plane and grab the first puke bag I see, puke out my whole entire meal. We start to get ready for takeoff. I'm like grabbing puke bags. I have to run to the bathroom. I'm throwing up. I'm shitting. I'm throwing up in the sink. I have a baby screaming on the plane because she wants to nurse. So I get back to my seat. I'm still throwing up while nursing my baby. Used up every puke bag in our row. And then I go to the back to ask for more puke bags. And they say, sorry, we're all out. Like, how do you run out of puke bags? So I'm taking the garbage bag from the back. It was a 5-hour flight of this beauty.
You're a saint.
You're literally a saint. First of all, I am so blessed up that I've never been really sick on a flight. I have been like a little hungover and like, you know, I've kind of had to pull the trigger in the bathroom a couple times, but I've never had to actually use like a throw up
if you're
bag.
hungover on a plane, you have another drink. You just go hair of the dog.
Well, that's, you know, it's like
that's
never
life advice for anyone.
Yeah.
But
no, like I've never been like that. Actively like puking, you know, struggling to even stand up. Have you ever thrown up on a plane? You like don't throw up.
No.
When was the last time you threw up? Like 2002.
Yeah, 2002. I don't know. Long time. But I think that one, when she said who chooses Wendy's in the Dominican, I can see that. At the end of a vacation, and you're going to be stressed. Sometimes you just need some good home comfort food.
Yeah.
Now, choosing a Wendy's in the Dominican may not be the best idea.
Yeah.
But I can justify Wendy's right before you're getting on a plane if you're starving and you need some comfort food.
Yeah. But it is a little risky. But I would say the fact that you did it with 3 kids too, like, you know, I was going to say, to be sick on a plane, thank God. Like, I have never been that sick. You know, again, like I felt a little queasy, whatever. But to be that sick and then on top of it to have 3 kids that you're taking care of.
That's why we started with You're a Saint.
Can't even imagine. I hope like you at least like had some help. Like I was wondering if like your partner or someone was with you to help, because that is my nightmare.
I thought I felt like it was something about that.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a we in there that felt inclusive. So I hope she did. She's a double saint if there wasn't anyone else there.
Yeah. If you did that all by yourself. I mean, either way, that's just
I hope the rest of the vacation was good.
Yeah, but hopefully the rest of the vacation was good.
And that was a fantastic story.
And luckily, I mean, you keep hearing all these stories too about people who like shit on the plane and then the plane has to like turn around and, you know, like it. Like, did you hear that about the guy who like shit in the toilet and clogged it on the plane, and then there was sewer and like shit coming down the aisles, and they had to like turn the plane around? Yeah. Like there's some situations where it can be really.
I try to make sure to take care of all that stuff.
I know.
I like space and comfort when I'm going, so I'll make sure to knock it out in the airport.
No, and that's why too. Like some people who like. You know, I think this is like in the younger days, but it'd be like, oh, we'll just stay up if you had an early flight. They'd be like, yeah, let's just go to the club and stay up all night and, you know, go straight to the airport. Could never be me. But I also like already have so much anxiety flying, so much claustrophobia, and get so anxious anyways that like, I don't even know if I was sick.
Oh, you get a plane sipper. You got to have you call them, I don't know it's not a roadie sody.
Paini.
I'll come up with a better name before the end of this.
Better name, but that's a gorgeous story, and again, hopefully you had a good vacation before that, and hopefully you're okay now. But that's rough. All right, James, are you ready for the next one? This one's another spooky sleep one.
Prepared.
Here we go.
Hey guys, love the podcast. I have I guess, secret that has to do with strange things happening when I'm sleeping. I guess I go into this like paralysis thing. I don't know. It's very strange. It's hard to describe, and I really didn't even realize I did it until I got married. But basically, I see things, and they're really weird things, and I think that they're real. So one time I swore there was a man in my wall and I had to help him get out. And one time I saw raccoons up on my fan. There's a lot of like animal/bug things. I always get like very scared when it's happening. But since my husband has told me that I'm talking like gibberish and talking while it's happening, I kind of like snap out of it, and I like know it was fake, but it felt so real in the moment. It's really weird. So yeah, that's fun.
I am so glad every day that I do not have sleep paralysis.
Wow.
Because first of all, it sounds so scary, but it is such a prevalent thing and more prevalent than people think. And I remember there was this, you had sent me the video of like some guy was talking about like the 5 documentaries that are like, you know,
Yes.
the creepiest ones. And one of them was called The Nightmare. And it's about this idea of, you know, these people who have sleep paralysis and how like debilitating it is. And it's like there really is like not a cure for it. I think we had talked about that it's like, you know, sometimes a lot of sleeping medications only make it worse.
Yeah. Because you're in a in-between state.
Right. So it's like there's really not a ton you can do.
You know
what?
You know what's funny?
What?
I have had that when I was younger.
You had sleep paralysis?
Not to the level she did, I don't think. And when I was listening, that was such a good share that she had. And it reminded me, there were times, and I know the ages I remember it was more like junior high and a little before, where I would be like, felt like I was awake, almost like a lucid dream, but usually you're in a deep REM state for a lucid dream, but it might be more of an in-between sleep stage where I could not move and there was shadowy figures. Like I used to have those dreams.
You never told me that.
I never thought about it because I cured it. In a way, now every time I feel like and I think I've had it in the last 10 years since we've been together, every time I have that thought, I'll ask myself, kind of like your time one, ask somebody what time it is.
Yeah.
I ask myself, am I just sleeping? Like I literally do that.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't remember the last time I've had it. And now I'm like, have I? And I think I have. But yeah, no, I've distinctly used to have somewhere. And it was not sleep paralysis that same way.
Yeah.
Like hers is worse.
It's always a little.
It just reminds me of where you could not move. You felt.
Oh my God. I literally lose my actual shit.
Yeah, you would. It felt I would feel for absolutely frozen.
Oh my God,
and see shadowy figures. And it'd be like in my bedroom, like my actual kid's bedroom.
What?
Yeah.
That's
I used
crazy.
to have those.
You know, I meant to mention this to you last night too. I was reading and you had fallen asleep and
I do that.
Yeah, of course. But you were like, "Hi, Floofy." And I look over and there was no cat on you. And
did I say that?
Yeah.
I must have felt
like,
floofy.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe, I was like, maybe she, maybe he just like, felt the dog or something, or you had a dream. And then I was just reading, and then like 2 minutes later, you go, "What?" And I looked over and I was like, "What?"
I was talking to you.
Yeah. And I was like, "What? What?" I didn't say anything. And you're like, "Oh." And then you just fell asleep.
No way.
So randomly you will say, like, you'll do little things like that.
I'm sure I have. Oh yeah.
So
that's
funny.
Not the first time I've heard stuff like that. Yeah.
Have I ever talked in my sleep?
Oh, like I've heard little rumblings here and there. I think most people do at some point.
Of course.
I've never been. I can't think of anything that I've actually been able to make out, like hear it. But
there once was this app. Well, I think it still is an app, but you can like it'll pick up when people talk.
I think that would be so very interesting.
I don't know if I want to know. Like, I think that would freak me out.
Yeah.
If, like, I hear myself being like, "Hello, little girl," you know. I don't know.
I don't think I've ever heard you say. But I'm such a deep sleeper, you're not gonna wake me up.
I know.
Anyway.
Well, I was just gonna say you would never know. Anyways, you're passed out. Anyways, just crazy. But if you have this, you're not alone. Even James goes through it.
I know. Normally, I'd comment more, but she just really did remind me. I'm like, oh my God, there's a version, not as bad, but a version of that I definitely.
No, that's so scary. I would lose my mind.
I just learned at some point to ask myself, are you just asleep?
Like how to break yourself out. Yeah. Crazy. All right, are you ready for the one that blew my mind? This one blew my mind. All right, here we go.
Hi, Sam and James. You might be able to tell from my lovely voice, but I'm very under the weather right now. So listening to the latest episode about the Malaysian Airlines flight and the Bermuda Triangle, you guys are very much helping my mental health. I listened to the last couple episodes just to make me feel better. So thanks for that. I love the pod. But on the topic of the Bermuda Triangle, I wanted to call in because my family is like full of aviation, like pilots. pretty much all of my great uncles were pilots. So lots of history there. But one of my uncles, who was like the best pilot, like in the family, like he flew in the war, in World War II. He flew planes just for fun after that. Like my dad would spend summers out at his airfield and get to see all the planes and stuff. But he passed away. He was flying over the Bermuda Triangle and he had a crazy malfunction, which is like very unlike him, right? Because he's amazing. He's an amazing pilot. So my family didn't believe that it was pilot error, like they said. And they had the plane pulled up from the water. They paid to have it pulled up out of the ocean. And they found out it was indeed not pilot error. And there was a crazy malfunction where he had to fly the plane upside down. And he just eventually couldn't, something with the cowl broke, but eventually he couldn't pull it up enough and he just crashed into the ocean and passed away. But yeah, I can attest to my family's involvement with the Bermuda Triangle and it being a little wonky. Love you guys.
How crazy is that?
I'm speechless.
Yeah.
And I want to like meet her and hug her whole family.
I
That's
know.
crazy.
First of all, that's so cool. I just like, obviously not cool about your grandpa, but like cool that family of pilots and that
she talks about it with such pride. And
yeah,
would you know,
and I love that.
And how many people know exactly what all their great uncles did? Like she knows what her great uncles
so
did.
Cool. Yeah, it's so cool. But it's so sad and crazy about your grandfather. How bizarre. How bizarre. Like that's wild.
I'm rarely speechless in these situations.
Yeah, like one of you guys had a grandfather that flew over the Bermuda Triangle and they couldn't find out what it was.
Yeah. I love that they had the plane pulled out. They're like, no,
like,
we're
there's
finding
no way
this
it would have
out.
been his fault. Like he's way too good of a pilot. How insane is that?
You said mind blown? Mind blown.
That's crazy. R.I.P. to your grandpa, though. That's so sad. I wonder how long ago that happened. I
hope she gives us a good haunted story of Gramps coming to haunt her.
Yeah.
Maybe do a quick do a little seance.
Fly too? I couldn't remember if you said if you were a pilot or not, but
do a little seance. Let's see if we can get him back to visit.
Let's not and say we did. Just a crazy story, and yeah, James. So maybe the Bermuda Triangle.
Thank you for that. Was amazing.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and
that's a capper.
I mean, not amazing that your grandfather.
No, absolutely not. But the fact that you share that story and honor him in that way, and things happen in life, and that's horrifying.
One of the risks of flying something like that, but over the Bermuda Triangle. So, do you believe in the Bermuda Triangle being creepy? She does.
Did you look into this more? Did your family look into the Bermuda Triangle more?
I'm more curious. Like
now, what else happened after the plane came out?
Right.
Like, there's
what
so
was
much
it
to
exactly?
this. We need to follow up.
Or was it spooky?
This warrants an absolute follow up.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for calling in and telling us that story. That is, again, that's crazy that one of you guys knew someone who flew over. Like, how crazy. But we appreciate you guys so much for calling in and always giving us great secrets and stories. Like, we have so many great ones too. And obviously, like, I'm trying to get to all of them. But again, if you haven't heard yours in over a month, make sure to call back in because it might have just been an audio issue or something cut out or whatever. And if you want to call back in, leave us a secret, you can call in too.
SpeakPipe.
That's speakpipe.com/weirdandproudpod. Again, speakpipe.com/weirdandproudpod. It'll also be in the description. Also, make sure you're following us on Instagram. Weird and Proud Pod. We hit 10,000.
We got 10,000 followers.
Woo-hoo!
Send your favorite comedy club in your town. Let us know which one it is.
Yeah, where should we go
send
next?
The Weird and Proud Pod or Sam's info to them because it helps when you help start this, and we will come to you.
Yeah. So if there's a local, a club that you love to go to and you live in, Minneapolis or wherever.
And if you help us book a show, we will come and buy you dinner and some drinks before the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, James, anything else you want to tell the people?
No.
Is that it?
I didn't think of a good
outro?
The dream one that brought me back. Thank you for sharing the dream one.
You're gonna have
that was in that I hadn't thought about that in so long. But then also the Bermuda Triangle one was
right. I know.
Stunning.
I know.
And I did not think of a good airplane drink. When never be hungover on a plane. Just have a little buzz on a plane. It's way easier.
Jesus. Jesus.
It's life advice.
Yeah, sure. Well, we love you guys so much. We hope you had a great week, and we hope you have another great week. On top of that, 4th of July is coming up. So exciting. God bless America. Also, I hate to always continue to ask this, but it would mean the absolute world to us if you could leave a 5-star review, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever Amazon thingies bobbers is, or if you're on YouTube, give this video a thumbs up, comment what your thoughts are on this episode. If there's something else, another case that you want me to put on my list or look into for next time, let us know. We just love you guys so much. We love the support, meeting you guys. Like, we're just
coming to the show.
We just love you guys so
and
much.
When someone says, I listen to the podcast, or even if you've listened to one episode and you're like, I listen to it occasionally, don't feel like, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Makes our lives. And of course, I mean, it makes our lives that you're there and we get to see you in real life too, anyone. But to know that you're also,
there's a special place in the heart for the weirdlings.
There really is. All right, you guys, we love you so much. Have an amazing week, and we'll see you next time. Bye, weirdies. Weirdies. Is weirdies cool? Okay,
Weirdies
let me know.
is cool.
Right. Okay, bye.